Contemporary Anti-Semitism Studies Association. Now you'll hear about it now from David Hirsh, from Ayal Feinberg, and a bit from myself. We have about 30 minutes. We want to leave you some time to also find your panels afterwards. So this will be a very quick, on-the-money presentation of what the need is, what is it that we want to do, and how we want you to join and help us with this initiative. So I'll start by inviting David Hirsh, the head of the London Center for Contemporary Anti-Semitism Studies. Please, David.
So this is a very exciting moment, I think, because we are making this morning a real step forward in organizing and institutionalizing and supporting the network of anti-Semitism scholarship. I want to start by saying a few things about contemporary anti-Semitism, and that is to begin really with, I think that it's true that anti-Semitism was kind of a thing of the past in the 20th century in many ways. I think maybe there was a rise of a particular Islamist anti-Semitism that I missed to some extent, but I think in mainstream politics and academia it was really a thing of the past. It still existed in the extremes on the left and the right, but it was disappearing. It came back in the new century. It came back. There were three moments in 2001 that I think are symbolically important, the first being the end of the peace process. And during the peace process, people didn't really think of Israel as an absolute evil that needed to be destroyed. It thought of Israel as a country that could be brought into a community of nations, and there would be a peace process, and when they stopped doing the horse trading, there would be peace. And with the collapse of the peace process, there was a reimportation of a 1970s Zionism equals racism ethic into the left and many left liberal spaces. That happened to a significant extent at Durban, the great big conference of NGOs, governments, and youth and students, where there was a formidable and very explicit campaign to change the paradigm from one of a peace movement to one of eradicating the evil of Israel, because Israel should now be seen as the key symbolic form of racism on the planet, especially after the fall of apartheid. And that way of thinking about Israel, which of course always impacted against Jews, if Israel is a key evil on the planet, then the overwhelming majority of Jews who are in one way or another associated with it also become a key evil on the planet. There was also always an allowance for exceptional Jews to be given exceptional status, but only if they uttered the words given. And the words were, I am against Israeli apartheid, I'm against Israeli settler colonialism, I'm against Israeli racism, but today in our time I'm against Israeli genocide. In other words, I stipulate that the overwhelming majority of Jews are Nazis. So this came through the first quarter of the 21st century. It became very clear to many people to whom it hadn't been incredibly clear yet on the 7th of October. But the things that happened to Jews after the 7th of October were very much the things that had already been happening to Jews, but to smaller layers and groups of Jews. And after the 7th of October, it happened to many more people. So what is the it? The it is the exclusion of Jews from the places in which they thought they were at home. In my experience, it happened to me, I think, in a sociology department. I remember very clearly being at home in my department and thinking, wow, I'm one of these guys, and then suddenly I wasn't. And I wasn't because I talked about anti-Semitism and about the boycott. And more and more layers of people have been pushed out of places where they thought they were at home, out of places like the British Labour Party, out of the left, out of many spaces in academia, out of the arts, out of even medicine and law, and many other places where, in order to be an accepted part of the community, you have to stipulate that Israel is committing genocide like Nazis. So that's the problem. The problem is one of mainstreaming since the beginning of the century. And this kind of anti-Semitism, the kind of anti-Semitism that requires everybody to treat most Jews as though they were Nazis, is more and more mainstream. So what do we do about it? Now, as academics, one of the things we do about it is we do what we do, which is academic research, academic theory, academic thinking, and academic collaboration. It's important for us because it is who we are, and that's what we do. But it's also important for the world because the heart of the fire is thinking at its most sophisticated scholarly levels. Everybody knows there's a problem of anti-Semitism on campus. Everybody knows there's a problem of anti-Semitism amongst the clever people. But not everybody can go and get into a debate with Judith Butler. How do you get into a debate with Judith Butler? You do a master's degree, and then you do a PhD, and you write a thesis, and you write some published articles, and you write a book, and then perhaps you can get into the room. That's how. It's hard, and it's actually, in a sense, a business of the elites. It's the business of people who can do that, and we are the people who can do that. So to get to the heart of the fire, which is academic disciplines, you have to be inside the disciplines. We can train as many students as you like in ways of dealing with anti-Semitism, and that's a good thing. But when they go back to the lecture theatre and they are then taught anti-Semitic intellectual frameworks, and they are given anti-Semitic reading lists, and they are brought back into the anti-Semitic community, there's only one way to deal with what goes on inside the lecture theatre, inside the exam room, inside the conference, inside the disciplines, inside publishing, and that is by academics organising. Now, there is a hostile environment, and the reason there's a hostile environment is the one that I've just explained, that it's very difficult to feel at home when anyone who raises the issue of anti-Semitism politically or intellectually is marginalized as a person who is up to something, which was my friend Dave Rich's definition of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is the idea that the Jews are up to something, and when academics use their disciplinary knowledge and experience and techniques to study anti-Semitism or to confront it or to undermine it, then they are very often considered by their peers as people who are dishonestly using the language of their discipline in the effort to silence and delegitimize criticism of Israel. So, whereas the hostile environment is more and more mainstream, there are indeed also more and more academics and scholars and students and grad students who are finding ways to oppose the hostile environment and finding ways to oppose the truths that are given to us by it. But we are largely isolated geographically, in our disciplines. I think it was Jeff Hirsh who said, we are the one person in each department who sits there generally quietly and doesn't go along. And the one person in each department is in this room, and we are strong in this room because there are hundreds of us in this room. So the work that I've been involved in and others over the first quarter of this century has been work of creating networks of scholars whereby we are not isolated. We are not the only person in our discipline or the only person in our department, but we can come together in communities. The university is a community of scholarship. And if we are excluded from the university, from the community of scholarship, then we need to build our own. And that doesn't mean because we're going to run away and leave the university's to themselves. It means we're going to build communities of scholarship by which we can then orientate ourselves back to the universities, because the universities are so important. They construct the normal thinking of our age. They are places where young people construct their political identities, and we need to be there offering alternatives, undermining the people who prop up the anti-Semitic culture. So today, I think, is a real step forward, because what we are doing is announcing the Contemporary Anti-Semitism Studies Association. We have, I think, about 150 founder members. We have, let me show you the Founding Advisory Council, which I'm very, very proud of, because it will give you an idea as to the centrality of this initiative in the field. It's a contested field. It's a contested issue. We were never going to have complete unanimity, but what we have done is create the mainstream network of anti-Semitism scholarship. In fact, that was already created. We met in London in 2022. We met last year in London. We are meeting this year in Haifa. This is the network. In quite a Marxist manner, the network exists in a materialist way, and what we are doing is consolidating it organizationally and institutionally. The three of us at the top are kind of temporary custodians of it. We have brought it together. David Barak-Gorodetsky is running the Compare Center at Haifa University. Ayal Feinberg is running amazing things at Gratz College in Philadelphia. They're both doing postgraduate programs for teaching about anti-Semitism, about Holocaust studies, and about contemporary anti-Semitism in particular. It's interesting that this initiative is kicked off by small institutions, by us at the London Centre, which is not especially affiliated to a university, although we have our affiliations, by Gratz, which is a small Jewish college in Philly, by a part of Haifa University. The reason for that is because the big institutions, as institutions, are as much part of the problem as they could possibly be part of the solution. And we have been to meetings with, like, the big four anti-Semitism centers in America, with University of Toronto, with NYU, with Penn, with Michigan. And there are really good people in those places who want to be part of what we're doing and who are part of what we're doing. And we have invited some of them to join us as members and as part of the advisory council. But those institutions find it very difficult to move. And the reason those institutions find it difficult to move is because they have to exist within the culture that is hostile to Jews. They need to exist within an anti-Semitic culture. And everybody says we need to maintain a broad church, otherwise something. Well, we're not quite maintaining a broad church. What we're doing is building the network that the discipline needs. And the network that the discipline needs is so that we can collaboratively do anti-Semitism scholarship. Not only that, but also scholars who are in disciplines that are significantly affected by anti-Semitism, and we can create for ourselves communities of scholarship, because we are not allowed in the ones that exist, in the ones that taxpayers pay for, in the ones that have been going for 1,000 years, at least in England. We are not allowed to take our place in that with any confidence. And we cannot do anti-Semitism scholarship if every time we stand up to say something interesting about our research, somebody else says, oh, well, you know, criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. It's a bit like if you're trying to do feminist studies and every time you speak, somebody gets up and says, well, I think the woman's place is in the kitchen. Like, we can have those debates, for sure, but we cannot do our work in that scholarly environment. So we're building networks. I'm not going to go through all these names, but the reason these names are important is because they show a real broadness, a breadth of support for CASA. We call it CASA, like home. Ayal tells me off for calling it a home for the homeless. He says, no, we're not the homeless, we are the mainstream. And we are both, actually. We are the mainstream of anti-Semitism scholarship, and we invite everyone who is doing serious anti-Semitism scholarship to join. We're not a very good home for people who want to say, well, anti-Semitism is all got up by the Jews in order to silence criticism of Israel. But, you know, come in and join and see how you go. Casa as a home, not Casa, because it sounds like Gaza. Oh, God. So, maybe that's a British problem. You are all very, very welcome. Many of you have joined Casa as founder members. I have to tell you that there will be benefits and reductions and freebies into the future if you are a founder member. So join sometime today or this week or very soon, and you will be a founder member and you will get benefits forever, and you will never be allowed to leave, because if you ever leave, then your freebies will be gone as well. So that's kind of cool. Let me say also, interestingly, there's another kind of delineation between us and some of the people who are really suspicious of what we're doing, and that is the way that we work alongside others. Now, we've been to these meetings where people have been talking about the construction of a field of contemporary anti-Semitism studies, and one of the strangenesses is there'd be big discussions about how we as scholars should relate to Jewish communities, or to people fighting anti-Semitism, or to civil society, or to journalism. And I remember I kind of found a way to articulate it really, really carefully. And I said, one of the things that Hannah Arendt was worried about in hindsight was, she said that many of the Jewish leaderships in the 1930s didn't really understand what they were dealing with when they looked at Nazism, and they thought that they could deal with Nazism in a way that they had always dealt with anti-Semitism in the past. She said they didn't understand it well, and that was really damaging. And I said, well, one of the things that we might do as scholars is help Jewish communities and Jewish leaderships to understand the anti-Semitism that they are being confronted by. And can you believe it? There was uproar in the room. Oh my gosh, no, we can't do that, because we cannot collaborate with Jewish institutions or with institutions that are set up to fight anti-Semitism. Why not? Well, I'll tell you the actual reason why not is because this idea that Jewish institutions and institutions set up to fight anti-Semitism, like the ADL, like the AJC, like the CST, there is this idea that they are really Zionist organizations set up to delegitimize support for the Palestinians. And if we collaborate with them, then we're collaborating with that racist genocidal project. So interestingly, what sounds really inoffensive, that we should partner with people who are fighting anti-Semitism, just like research doctors partner with people who are trying to cure disease, or engineering academics partner with people who are trying to build bridges. If we partner with people who are trying to fight anti-Semitism, then we make ourselves illegitimate because we make ourselves political. What politics? The politics, it is said, is pro-Zionist, pro-genocide, pro-racist politics. So who we work with has become quite a key defining issue, and we're very clear. We wish to work with CST and ADL and AJC. We're not going to be run by them. We're not going to be told what to do by them. In fact, what they need are people who are doing high quality, independent, and brilliant research. So they don't want us to do what they tell us to do. They want us to produce knowledge, and they want us to produce research. And we want support from them, and they want support from us, and we're very comfortable with that. So what sounds inoffensive to me has become quite a key delineation. So I'm going to hand over very shortly to Ayal, who is going to tell you some more concrete stuff about how we're organizing CASA, how you can get involved. Just to say that the construction of scholarly community is also the construction of scholarly infrastructure. In the first place, these conferences are places where people can meet in an environment that is not hostile and that is worth so much. They can meet each other, they can create networks, and they can work together. Secondly, we are interested in not in creating for you, but in empowering people to create sub-networks of CASA. So I see Perla Matsov in the second row, who is organizing a conference at Brock in October about empirical research on anti-Semitism. So looking at the results of empirical research, looking at the methods of empirical research, both quantitative and qualitative. She's going to organize a symposium. People who have an interest in that should go in October. And hopefully out of that will come an ongoing CASA sub-network of about empirical research. We want all kinds of sub-networks we want people to take control of and to take responsibility for and to build. Somewhere is my colleague Adam Dixon, who is doing fantastic work on sports and anti-Semitism, and we're going to do a thing in the morning at this conference. And sport and anti-Semitism is becoming an ever more important issue because the campaign to get rid of Israelis from sport is appearing to many people to be a kind of respectable campaign. And again, Jews who refuse to disavow in the words offered to them are also excluded. So there are many people working on sport and anti-Semitism. There are many people interested in it, like the Maccabee organizations, for example, and Jews who do sport. And there is funding available for that kind of work. Also, we would like to push forward with Muslim and or Islamist anti-Semitism to bring together the scholars who read Arabic, who understand Islam and who understand Islamist politics, and to move forward with that. Any number of sub-networks, but we're not going to build them for you. You're going to have to build them. People want a critical theory network. Great, build it. People want a feminism and anti-Semitism network. Brilliant, build it. The London Centre, by the way, has just published 2 books, fantastic books on feminism and anti-Semitism. So, infrastructure, publishing. The CASA journal will be published by Ayal at Gratz. Book series, conferences, sub-networks, and Ayal's just about to push me off the stage. Thank you, people.
Wow, following David. That's something. How's everybody doing? Good, good. I don't know if you guys had the same overwhelming feeling, especially for those of you that came here from abroad, but as many of you know, this has not been the easiest conference to organize. And so a huge thank you to David Barak-Gorodetsky. And his entire team at Haifa that have just been extraordinary to work with. And when I landed, I was so happy that we decided to do it here. It is so meaningful, and I hope that feeling, that overwhelming feeling that I have is something that you share, and it carries you through these challenging few days, because studying this, engaging with this work is hard. I'm going to admit something here. I've never launched a new academic association before, and there are some risks that are attached to it, but also I think there's reasons to be incredibly excited. I'm looking out at an audience full of scholars, and there's one thing that we do really, really well, and what is it, friends? Disagree, sure. No, we're very good at identifying the problem, right? We're less famous for what we do next, right? And in a certain sense, this is really at the heart of what's motivating us to create CASA. CASA is not an acronym that is searching for a purpose. CASA is absolutely, as David Hirsh explained in his talk, necessary at this moment. We do not suffer from a lack of urgency. We do not suffer, clearly, by this room, from a lack of deeply committed individuals with incredible expertise. But we do suffer from a lack of structure. And that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. So, the creation of CASA, these are some of the 5 founding pillars that have been essential to us as we were trying to figure out what is the infrastructure that we need as a field. The creation of CASA, right, took quite a lot of heavy lifting, as can be evidenced from David Hirsh and David Barak-Gorodetsky, but we view it as an invitation to start something new, not as the culmination. Associations, after all, only become meaningful through the work of the people that are operating from within them. Journals become important, and we'll talk about a journal in a second, but only when scholars submit very strong work, reviewers take their responsibilities seriously, and of course editors uphold standards. Conferences like this one matter only if they become real places for exchange. Networks that we've all helped to organize and create, they matter. But they matter only if people use them to build something more than themselves. So this launch is not simply a celebration, it is an invitation. It is an invitation for all of you to engage with CASA. What can that mean? It can mean attending a future CASA convening. It can mean going to one of these annual conferences that we will rotate amongst our institutions and hopefully extend to other institutions and locations in the future. It means submitting to the new CASA journal that we've created. It means mentoring junior scholars. It means challenging weak arguments. It's welcoming serious debate. And it's connecting research and practice, which David so eloquently mentioned. We have to connect research with practice. So CASA begins here in Haifa, and we're celebrating the launch of that today. But the reality is that it should not and will not remain here. It should travel with us everywhere we go, into our classrooms, into our institutions, and be at the heart of what our future collaborations look like. So of these 5 pillars, why did we choose these 5? Because they're necessary to create a field. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to define a field of anti-Semitism studies. None of these pillars on their own, no single activity can build a field. A conference without scholarly publication becomes just an event. A journal without a scholarly community to engage in its work and to build from it cannot effectively facilitate the growth of knowledge. Mentorship, and this is so important, especially for the junior scholars in the space, mentorship without real professional pathways, which is so often the case in our field today, it's just goodwill. It's goodwill with limited application. And practice without evaluation, well, that's just learning without figuring out how to scale and how we actually move the needle. CASA is designed not only to hold, but weave these 5 pillars together, to convene scholarly encounters, to publish rigorous peer-reviewed research, to connect scholars, practitioners, students, and institutions, and most importantly, perhaps to cultivate the next generation of people to populate rooms even larger than this one. So what are we trying to do organizationally? This is a little bit of the tachlis here, right? We're trying to strike a balance. CASA needs to be organized enough to build, but open enough for everybody here to feel they have the agency to meaningfully participate. That means it needs leadership that can steward the early development of an association, maintain its coherence, and make sure that the ideas that you bring to us actually become programs. But it also needs meaningful member input. It needs your advisory consultation. It needs your committee participation. And it needs, first and foremost, scholarly autonomy. So the goal here, as you can see from our structure, is not bureaucracy for its own sake, right? Nobody came to Haifa hoping to join more committees. But if you did, please let me know after this talk. But the point of good governance, right, is not to join more committees or to create more paperwork. It's turning energy into capacity, and that's absolutely what we're trying to do today. I want to share that in Philadelphia in 2027, on June 13th to the 16th, we are hosting the next convening for our CASA gatherings. The Philadelphia conference will be as magnificent as what you are experiencing at Haifa. It will be hosted at both Gratz College and our new campus in Barak-Gorodetsky, Pennsylvania, as well as the Weitzman Museum in downtown Philadelphia. By then, CASA will have moved from an announcement, and we will be implementing a lot of the things that we have already discussed today. That includes a CASA journal, that includes all of the committees and the sub-networks that David Hirsh alluded to. And the field itself, as we're facing now, will continue to face a central test. And that test is, can we build a rigorous academic community that is serious not only about understanding anti-Semitism, but also producing the knowledge that it will take to help institutions and educators and communities and policymakers respond to anti-Semitism more effectively. That is going to be the core organizing question of the Philadelphia 2027 conference, how we move from research to practice effectively and efficiently. I will also share that this will reflect in many ways, shapes, and forms, right, a lot of the commitments that we see here today. Our hope is that there will be many opportunities for those in this audience to engage with the highest level of research. That includes submitting abstracts. I will let you know on June 15th, we will be opening up our call for abstracts. We wanted to make sure only to do that after. And all of the information that you will need about participating in the Philadelphia conference will be there on our CASA website, contemporaryantisemitism.com, right, David? Which is live, and you should go and explore on your phone. June 13th? July 15th, thank you, yes. I confuse all the J's. It's too much J's in my life. A lot of J's. July 15th and June 13th to the 16th of 2027 is when we're hosting the Philadelphia conference. Last thing I want to mention, and then I know we've got to get moving here, is a journal, right? This is really, really exciting. Scholars in our field are facing what? Everybody here should know. Enormous headwinds in publishing. It has become really challenging even to publish the most high-quality research that focuses on anti-Semitism within our traditional disciplines. And let me be clear about something, right? We want research to appear in the most reputable journals across our fields in history and sociology and political science, in psychology and education and law, even in Jewish studies. But contemporary anti-Semitism studies also needs a truly visible, explicitly dedicated journal to publishing the highest quality research, our scholarly debates, and our data sets. And this is why we are creating and launching the Contemporary Anti-Semitism Studies Association Journal. This journal will be peer-reviewed, of course. It will welcome disciplinary breadth. It will create a space for contemporary anti-Semitism in its many forms and contexts and manifestations. And most importantly, it will be open access, right? And so this will separate what we are creating from the few other outlets in our space, because the biggest challenge that I have when I talk to colleagues from other disciplines that are beginning to be interested in anti-Semitism research is, where is it? How can I access it? And this is a huge undertaking by CASA to make this journal come to fruition. As you can see from our founding editorial board, it represents not just a certain quality, but also a depth and breadth associated with the field of contemporary anti-Semitism studies. If you would like to be involved in the journal, please let me know. I will share that the idea for the journal is to really elevate and leverage a lot of the research that's being shared at this conference. The journal webpage is live, but we are going to start accepting submissions on September 1st of this year. And one other thing I'll share about open access and some of the challenges that we have in our space and why we view this as the solution. Right now, even if you want to publish in an anti-Semitism studies journal, it takes a significant amount of time, right? We're talking months and months and months, if not years, right? And what we need is to build very quickly and very efficiently a serious body of literature. Our current infrastructure doesn't allow for that. So by adopting an open access model, right, our goal is to make sure that from review to acceptance is something that we measure in weeks rather than months, and getting your research out and open and published and shared, having people read it in our space, right, is something that will hopefully be under 8 weeks of time. So this is really going to provide an excellent opportunity for us to begin building the foundations of knowledge we need to be successful. On that note, and we could go on and on and on, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, David Barak-Gorodetsky. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. I have not prepared my notes for this on account of the variety of other roles I play at this moment, but I'll say just 3 quick things, and then we'd also like you to move forward with the other events we have planned in the conference. First of all, I'd like to say that for me, and I think for many of you also, this is a calling, okay? I joined the anti-Semitism field. I took over the conference center in June 2023. I was approached by the president of the university, which you will meet later, and I thought this would be just another side kick. And obviously, we all understand that this is not. I'm an historian, but I've stepped into this space. I'm an historian of American Judaism out of the understanding of how this essentially reshapes the way we understand history, reshapes the way we understand the work we've been doing, reshapes the way we understand contemporary affairs. And for me, this is a calling, and I hope that also for you. And to that end, I also want to say that's the first aspect. The second aspect is that we are the Israeli partner in this cooperation, and it's not a coincidence because we need an Israeli partner, and we need you to be here in Haifa. And we underwent extreme efforts by all partners, and I want to acknowledge that and recognize your support, and also your support of you, a lot of you coming over to have this conference here in Israel, in Haifa, and we will continue to be the Israeli agent, if you want to use the conspiracy kind of language, in promoting what needs to be done, the kind of research that needs to be done here at this space. And the third aspect that I wanted to point is that we need you. Okay, so this also being a calling, we would love you to join. This is the home for contemporary anti-Semitism scholarship. We want you to join. We want you to be part of it. We want you to shape it. We're organizing it. We're pushing it. We are pushing it forward quickly. We have urgency. We understand the needs of the moment. And we are speeding up academia in a ways it's not usually used to being pushed, but we are not willing to wait anymore, okay? So this is who we are. This is what we want to do. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you signing up for Kaza. We'll send this also on the WOVA and all other platforms. We would have loved to have time for Q&A, but unfortunately we don't, because we want to kind of have you, we make sure that and respect the scholars that are starting their session at 2 p.m. So we thank you very much. We'll be speaking about it again a bit in the gala, and then we'll hopefully also have some more time for Q&A. You could please reach out to us for any questions you might have, and toda rabba. Okay, so for now, you're just invited to move forward to the rest of the sessions. We have a session here. We have further sessions in all halls. And we have a Druze dinner. So for those of you who are interested.